The Polytunnel renovation continues, and this week it's all about this stuff. Lots and lots of this stuff. It's Woodchip, and that's because I'm laying my first ever Woodchip paths. Hey everyone, how's it going? And welcome back, and welcome to a really messy corner of my garden that I don't normally show on the channel. I use this area a little bit like a processing plant. If I chop down something big, I'll drag it round here to deal with. Likewise, I make my compost and my leaf mold here. It's not exactly the nicest area, but everybody needs a messy area of the garden, don't they? At least that's what I'm telling myself. But the reason we're here now is to talk about this stuff, Woodchip. So last week, I started working on what are going to be woodchip paths around the edge of the polytunnel. I laid down landscape fabric, got it pinned down, and now I'm ready to go with the next step, which is to tip all of this stuff out and get the paths finished. But I thought I'd quickly talk about how I've made this, and more importantly, why I'm using it as a path material. So another couple of weeks ago, you saw in an episode that I chopped down a couple of fruit trees. I've also been working on a lot of hedges around the edge of the garden, removing quite a lot of material that we don't want anymore. As you can imagine, that creates a whole load of vegetative waste that needs to get disposed of somehow. So I've been working away. I've got this shredder set up in the polytunnel, and for the last few days, I've been working away, shredding all of that material, and this is what I'm left with. Brilliant, brilliant woodchip. So I'm using it for a number of reasons. For starters, it's cost. If I wanted to buy in an aggregate or a gravel, it's going to cost me a lot of money for the amount of area that I need to cover. Plus, it's going to be a lot of heavy work to get it down from the front of the garden all the way back here. Secondly, as I was saying, I'm chopping down a lot of material in the garden, but in Ireland, it's illegal to have a bonfire to burn garden waste in your garden. So you have to dispose of it somehow. That ends up being expensive and a lot of effort in itself. So this is the perfect solution. I'm taking the waste that I've got and I'm repurposing it, using it for something that's going to be really useful. And that is the next thing. I'm really trying to minimize the amount of inputs and outputs that I have in the garden in terms of taking stuff and dumping it and it becoming waste when it could be reused, and instead buying stuff and bringing it in. Wherever I can eliminate that from now on, I'm going to try and do that. And this is a perfect example of that. I've seen other YouTubers use this and it seems like a really good path material. I thought that it actually might be a bit, well, unpleasant to walk on and a bit dirty, but actually it seems to work really nicely. And everybody that's using it can't be wrong when there's a whole load of them, right? So I think it's going to be really good for me. And then the final thing is a nutrition point of view. This stuff will break down over time, and composted woodchip can be used just like any other compost in beds and things like that. So what's nice is I'm reusing material, not disposing of it and getting rid of it. It's not costing me anything, but on top of all of that, it's actually going to be returning nutrition to the soil. I think that's absolutely brilliant. So I've talked about why I'm using this stuff enough. Let's get started and let's get it laid down. Brilliant. I've got the first bit done and I'm really happy with it. I think it looks really nice and neat, albeit it's a little bit of a sea of brown at the minute, but once the beech hedge greens up later in the spring, it's going to look really well. It also feels really nice underfoot. It's surprisingly solid and it's nice and dry compared to the squishy grass and mud that was here. But I have learned two things already. The first one, which is a really good thing, is that wood chip is really light, so it's nice and easy to work with. It's not a big deal shoveling it or transporting it around in the wheelbarrow or raking it out. But the other thing, and this is a bit of a recurring theme for me in this garden, I know, is that even just this little area was much bigger than I'd expected, and all of the wood chip that you saw a couple of minutes ago in that bulk bag, well, this is all of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and get a little bit of lunch. I'm going to get shredding because I've got more stuff, and I'll make more wood chip and we'll get the area around the front of the polytunnel done. This is great. While I was having my lunch, I remembered that in the polytunnel I had these, a bag and a box full of wood chip that I can use. Now, originally this stuff was destined to be used inside the polytunnel for the polytunnel paths, but actually, now that I see the landscape fabric down here, I think that's going to be a better surface. So when I'm building the raised beds inside the polytunnel, the paths that I'll have in between, I'm just going to have landscape fabric, which means all of this is ready to be used. Now, you will notice that it's different to what I used at the side of the polytunnel. It's shredded a lot more finely, and that's because the shredder that I own shreds wood really, really fine, which is fantastic. It means you can use it in a whole load of ways that you wouldn't normally. Like, for instance, you can add this very fine wood chip as your bulking agent into a compost heap or into a hot composter. It does mean, though, that it's going to break down a little bit quicker, but when I put it down on this landscape fabric, I'm going to cover it again with another layer of the chunkier wood chip, and I think it's going to work really well. Now, if you haven't already noticed from my previous videos, you'll certainly start to notice over the next while I have a really bad perfectionist streak, and already I'm looking at this stuff and thinking, oh, but it's not going to match the other stuff. I know. It'll weather down, and ultimately it doesn't make a difference because it's just meant to be a practical surface, but it's certainly triggering in my head at the minute. So like I say, I'm going to put a nice fine layer of this stuff. It'll get it used, it'll contribute towards the wood chip paths here, and then I'm going to top it up with even more of the chunky wood chip. It's not often a job in the garden is this cushy. I get to work in the dry when I'm doing the shredding, and everything just needs to get tipped right here. Ah. I know it sounds cliche, but what a difference a day makes. A day's work, and I think this area has really been transformed for the better. When you compare what this was like only a week ago, here was just weeds. It was a really nasty area. Behind me there were flagstones that were slippy and dangerous, and the whole area around the polytunnel was really wet and boggy and muddy. It just was not nice to have to walk over. Now it's a really practical surface. It's surprisingly solid actually underfoot and dry. It feels great, and I think it's going to be really good for marching back and forth, for wheeling wheelbarrows back and forth, and I'm really, really pleased. As well as the practicality, I think it looks so much better. It just looks really uniform, really neat and tidy, and it's another step into getting this old polytunnel refurbished and getting it really useful and productive again. So leave me a comment down below. I'm really interested to hear your thoughts. Is Woodchip something you've used before? If it isn't, is it something you'd think about using? Let me know. I love hearing from you. As ever, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit the thumbs up. If you haven't already, click subscribe and make sure to hit that bell icon, and then that way you'll be notified when I post my next video. And until next time, see you later.